So I'm here now with Rosemarie, and she's an amazing person, an amazing patient of mine, and we've grown into friends over the years because really we've been on this journey together. And I'll let her tell the story because she had two different autoimmune diseases. It's unfortunate to have one, and she had two, and really needed something outside the box. So Rosemarie, take it away.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Maristani. Um, yeah, it's been a journey. My journey started back in around February of 2020. I started to get a lot of pain in my hips and shoulders and found that all of a sudden I couldn't get out of bed. I was in such extreme pain that I could barely move or walk. And I would basically pull myself out of bed, get into a hot bath, drive my daughters to school, come home and go back to lay on the couch for the day. My
Hmm.
energy level, people that knew me prior to, my energy level on a scale of 1 to 10 was generally a 12 and was down to a 2. So I could barely do anything. And I actually thought I was going to have to retire from my career because all I could do is one phone call a day. And even that was a struggle. So I, went to my doctor of a really good primary care and he suspected it was PMR. I went to a rheumatologist, since got the diagnosis, after confirmed, and started on a course of prednisone. And they start at 20 milligrams, and then you slowly wean yourself down. And I was on prednisone for probably about a year and a half, close to 2 years. And there's
So
definitely side effects from that.
let's
Mhm.
stop right there. That's huge. Okay, so first of all, PMR stands for polymyalgia rheumatica. So it's a rheumatological or autoimmune disease, polymyalgia, multiple muscles involved, the proximal shoulders and the proximal hips
Yeah.
being the worst. So people have trouble getting out of chairs and getting out from a sitting position or lifting anything over their
Couldn't
head.
even dress myself, could barely dress
Yeah.
myself.
And it's
I
and
was
it's
in so.
and imagine just being so weak you can't function. It's like you're not really paralyzed, but your muscles can't function. It's horrible. And just Rosemary made a large statement. I was on prednisone for 1.5 years. You look, the standard of care for PMR is that it's a prednisone taper
It
over a
is.
really long time. It takes sometimes 2 years, 3 years. Rosemary never got off it. She could never wean completely off it. I remember when she called me, she was like, "Oh, I'm on 5, trying to go to 4 prednisone," and I'm like, "Oh my god, prednisone, it's okay for a short period of time, but when you're on for that long, you can get osteoporosis, bone thinning, skin thinning. You can get all sorts of crazy stuff, and it can affect your sex hormones. It can affect other parts of your immune system. It can make you, if you're on higher doses, you weren't on higher doses, thankfully, but if you're on higher doses, it can affect your immune system, and you're prone to more infections. And it just not being good for your bones, in my opinion,
Oh,
is
it's an
enough.
awful.
Yeah.
I actually developed osteoporosis as a result.
Oh,
However,
wow.
the good news is I have since, and we've done some work on this, I have since popped back into pina, and
Yeah.
I am continuing the natural route and the route that we're on, and I'm confident that I'm just slowly going to grow back the strength of my bones. And when I got sick, I was a fit lady. I mean, I worked out 3 to 5 times a week. I lifted weights. I was in great shape. 5'5.5" and 124 pounds. So I wasn't heavy,
Yeah.
but this disease just hit me like a Mack truck. And then the disease manifested into psoriatic arthritis. And some people say that PMR could be a precursor to psoriatic arthritis or it could be two separate diseases. We'll never know the answer to that question. However, as I was struggling with pain on a daily basis and, wanting to get off the prednisone so bad and willing to tolerate a lot of pain to try to get off of it, that's when I started my journey. And that's when I met Dr. Maristani. And Dr. Maristani and I met. We went through full genetic workup. We went through full blood work. And I started on a journey with a course of supplements with Dr. Maristani, but the pain was still there, and it wasn't something that could be cured overnight. It's a
Correct.
process.
Correct.
Dr. Maristani introduced me to another doctor, orthopedic doctor who specializes in stem cells, who has a stem cell clinic. I went out of country to Antigua. I got a round of umbilical stem cells IV and found that did provide some relief, but it didn't eliminate the problem. So after I did that, that doctor suggested that he connect me with this other doctor who was a cellular biologist. They ordered a bunch of blood work, did not charge me for the consult at all. So I had a consult with the doctor from Chicago and then the other doctor in North Carolina. These are both US doctors. I'll only deal with US doctors and very well published doctors at that.
And by the way, the cell biologist is a PhD and an MD in cell
Yeah.
biology. Got
Well,
it.
I think he's one of the best cellular biologists in the world, and
Correct.
he's published numerous articles. And so he introduced me to this doctor, and that's where I was introduced to T cell vaccinations. And he's been doing it for over 30 years, not one adverse reaction. So after a couple of phone calls, I was referred to another patient that I spoke to get a level of comfort. I decided to make the journey and go to Buenos Aires and start the process, which the initial process is the apheresis and plasmapheresis, where they pull your blood out, pull out the lymphocytes or the cells, and
Yeah.
they put your blood back into your body. But it is a little unnerving when you're in a foreign country getting this done. And in Buenos Aires, legally, they can only draw blood from you either in a hospital or a blood bank. So you have to go to a state-run blood bank, and I will tell you, they are not the most beautiful clinics in the world. So
Yes.
you're in this third
I
world
remember you
country.
FaceTime me from this place. Like, am I in the right place? I said,
Yeah,
I
I
hope
was like,
so.
Eddie, look at this. Oh my God. But
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, so I did the apheresis, which is the start of the journey. They have to take the cells, and then once they take the cells, they replicate them, they treat them. I think Eddie, Dr. Maristani can speak more to that process. Um, and then they create the T cell vaccination, which is a series of 12 vaccinations. So I committed. Now, at one point, they were partnering with a group in Mexico, so I was able to go to Mexico. But I think now people can go to Antigua and get their subsequent vaccinations, because really it's an IV for 3 hours, and they like you to stay that evening to make sure, just for observation, and then I would generally fly home the next day. And I did make that commitment after a series of 12 T cell vaccinations. My arthritis has pretty much, my psoriatic arthritis is in complete remission. It's gone. I still have a bit of damage in the joints from the arthritis. It is not getting worse. As a matter of fact, it's getting better, because part of the treatment protocol is that after the T cell vaccinations, they inject stem cells with lymphocytes into the joints. Now, this doctor published a paper April 21st where they're the only people in the world that have been able to regrow tissue cartilage. And as I understand it, when you do stem cells on their own into a joint, the stem cells can reduce inflammation and heal existing tissue, but cannot regrow tissue.
Correct.
So I had that treatment done in my hip. I had 2 shots in my hip, but they have to be a couple months apart. And I had one in each knee. And since I am noticing, I have actually no hip pain, like no hip pain. It's
I want
insane.
to. This is incredible. I just want to unpack all that information just a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, it's a
So
lot. It's a
there's a
lot.
lot. You just loaded them. So first of all, you had PMR and you had psoriatic arthritis. So you had two autoimmune diseases.
Yes.
And I believe the first round of T cells kind of knocked out your PMR. Correct?
Absolutely. I think that when I was working with the doctors, we all thought it was PMR initially. So when they pulled the cells, they were working to attack the cells or to stave off the overproduction of cells in the muscles.
Correct.
But as my joint pain progressed and started to get worse, and I spoke to the doctors about that, I got a series of MRIs done, and actually went to my rheumatologist and got a diagnosis of psoriatic arthritis. And that's when they altered the treatment protocol to try and to target the joints.
Got it. So and this is where autoimmune disease lives on a spectrum. Nothing is black or white. It
Yeah.
can start at one and develop into others, overlap syndromes. And so, but regardless, the incredible technology that they apply to you, and it took away your shoulder and your hip weakness and your joint pain. So all that's gone, which is a miracle, by the way. Very few
Amazing.
patients, even though this has been done quietly for 30 years. And we talked about, the reason it was quiet was because there really wasn't the impetus financial motivation to make this into a drug, because you can't patent it like a drug, and therefore there was just no motivation. And so it sat on the bench for years, and the guy who created it, who was a super genius guy we're talking about, said, you know what, I'm going to go overseas and we're just going to do it anyway. So who knows how many people he's treated quietly and secretly, because it's impossible to get through regulation unless you have $1 billion to run phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials. And so the other issue, so that's first of all the miracle, number one. And then you were also one of the few patients in the world to actually have stem cells that are reprogramming and regenerating cartilage, which has never been done before.
I was one of the first. The
Yeah.
paper was published April 21st, and I think I got my first round in May.
Wow. So you were like patient 1.
No, maybe
Or 2.
patient like 3, because they had
Yeah,
published
exactly.
patient 1,
Yeah.
and I was joking with them. So am I going to be like in the subsequent papers, certain age
Yeah.
female presented with and yeah. And
Correct.
so it's still that new that I had it done, and I go back in April, and they're going to do imaging then to document
The
the
growth of the
healing.
cartilage. Yeah.
Because we haven't
Yeah.
even gone to that level yet. My body is in that process of healing. And so when I go there, we'll get the imaging, and then they'll be able to go, yes, this worked for her as well, which I'm pretty sure it worked because the pain's gone.
No, of course. And we've had patients that have had MS, systemic sclerosis, some
Yes,
nasty autoimmune diseases get better. And so, and they've also been able to regrow spinal cord tissue. And there's
that's
been lots of
incredible. Mhm.
paralyzed patients that are now walking. And you saw the
I
previously
did see
paralyzed
them.
patients walking in the clinics.
Yes.
So
And
I
when
just think, yeah,
I was just going to say, Dr. Maristani, I think it is important, though, that to say, like, the people that are walking, they're not walking like you and I. They're walking with walkers, like, to
sure, of
qualify
course.
this. However, the ability to walk versus not walk at all, like to walk down a hallway with a walker, is incredible. Versus, because how many complications happen to these people because they're just sitting in a chair all day. So
Correct.
it really, and that's just the first phase of where they are. I am sure once this group of doctors continues the work and the research, that they'll take it to a whole nother level.
Absolutely. So I was just so happy that you were able to share that information. So many people are going to benefit from this
Yeah.
information. And there's so many autoimmune diseases that are just so horrible. And, if you're going to spend $70,000 a year for the rest of your life on a medicine, then maybe it's worth spending $100,000 up front and just having it all knocked out. And hopefully we think insurance will eventually step into this and help. But I just think that's great. And maybe we'll have you on a follow-up segment when you
Yeah,
just
I would love
celebrate.
that. I mean, I just
Yeah.
make a comment from the cost perspective as to how I qualified it in my mind. I'm an accountant, but I'm in the real estate world. But
Yeah.
I looked at it as investment in my future, and it was the travel costs that were quite pricey. There are other clinics that the stem cells that I got, if I went to another clinic, would have easily been a $50,000 bill on one of the visits. Like my total medical part of the bill maybe was a little bit north of 100,000. I actually don't even know. But what I do know is the travel, etc., probably put me over 150. But what I will say is as a result of this treatment, I've got 30 healthy years ahead of me, and I
Yeah.
divide that by 30.
Yeah.
What is that? That's $5,000 a year. I would drop that in a minute to invest into my future. And here's what I also know is that by spending that, I will get that back tenfold, because
Yeah.
now my energy level's back to probably, I don't think I'm at 12, and maybe that's just because I'm older, like I may be to a 9, or I may still be healing, because we are still healing in these joints. My energy level's up, my my clarity. Last time I was there, I think I had mentioned to you, Dr. Mirastani, that they had given me lymphocytes. And what they've proven is that when you inject lymphocytes into the body, so I had 2 pushes of lymphocytes 2 days prior. And then the subsequent day, I had an IV of stem cells, my stem cells. And when this when they give you the lymphocytes prior to the stem cells, the lymphocytes allow those stem cells to penetrate the blood-brain barrier, which is amazing
Amazing.
in science
Yeah.
because that is like something that nobody's been able to do. And their data shows that they have. And I will say, now this is me speaking, so a bit anecdotal, but as a result of doing that, I have more clarity. I can think more clearly. Like I can remember things better, which is like really phenomenal. So I know as we all get older, memory is a thing that impacts us.
Yeah.
So I definitely have felt some benefits from that. I am not done my treatment. I go back in April and I'll probably get more stem cells in my knees. And then the other thing, just as a side benefit, I did get stem cells in my face.
Of
And they
course.
actually, I think, have made my
Yeah.
skin
Yeah.
regenerate and rejuvenate so much that I get a lot of compliments on it.
I can
Yeah.
only imagine, and we've seen lots of patients get IV stem cells and their face looks better, skin looks better. So if you got them directly in, yeah, that's a genius idea. And they kind of like Botox, right? But except for with stem cells.
Well, what they do, like Botox, kind of freezes the movement of the muscles. What the stem cells
Well,
does is basically regenerates the collagen in the tissue.
right.
So what's nice about it is like you're not having surgery, you're basically going back to how you looked 10 years ago. You know,
Amazing.
you're
Yeah.
having the same, and
Yeah.
my before and afters, I can really see like the reduction of the lines here. I see that my skin is thickened. Like they said, that's the thing. Like as you get older, your skin gets thinner
And
and
your collar.
loses elasticity. And I feel like my skin has gotten thicker, plumper, more youthful. So that was kind of a side bit. I figured if I'm going to go all that way, I might as well do something for me. Those
No,
are
that
fun.
makes a lot of sense. And so what I meant also was like the needles, like they're like little Botox needles, right? They're really
Yes,
easy.
totally. Well,
So it's
yeah,
not.
they're a little bigger than Botox needles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
But
the first
you're
time it hurt
yeah.
like crazy. But then the next time I came, they said, okay, we're going to give you something prior because we realized it really was kind of painful. So,
So,
but
but thinking
yeah,
about, I just think it's wild. I mean, you were literally on prednisone for almost 2 years when I first met you. You've been off prednisone for how long now?
it's been over a year, maybe a year and a half, because
Yeah,
it'll
you're
be,
cured. I mean, this is crazy.
yeah,
You're cured. You're flying out of bed. You're not stuck in the bed. You're exercising. You're super active.
back in the
You feel
gym
better. Your energy's up. So essentially, you've been cured of one or two autoimmune diseases,
too.
which is wild. And so I just think it's fascinating. I think it's an amazing science. I think it needs to be the future of medicine. We have the
Oh, I
technology.
think it is.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I think that the FDA is starting to be more aware of these kinds of treatments. Did I send you the link? This is sort of a sidebar that on Friday, the FDA just approved with CRISPR technology for sickle cell anemia,
Yeah,
which is
that's a
huge.
different. Yeah, that's a whole
That's
different
CRISPR.
type of. Yeah,
It's a
that's
whole,
gene editing.
but it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's a very unique one-off patient. Like
Right.
or treatment. And whereas like this is immunotherapy for autoimmune disease,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The
And
only difference is that CRISPR, it costs millions of dollars,
exactly. Yeah, this doesn't.
pharma profit per gene edit. This you can't patent. So that's why they unfortunately are going to push CRISPR, which is great. I love CRISPR. It's just going to cost millions of dollars, which is
Oh,
crazy.
it's a good point
Yeah.
because it's a new
But
technology.
yeah. But and to your point, if you have a genetic mutation, then CRISPR is the answer. If
Yeah.
you have autoimmune disease, I would say T cell vaccine is the answer.
Oh,
And
I
if
think
yeah,
wherever T cell can be used, it makes total sense. The cost is insignificant relative to a lifetime.
but I think it's great that overall I mean, you've experienced something that less than anyone, maybe two people in the whole world have experienced. And now you're here to say, look, not just did it fix everything, and it's probably making your bones thicker too, by the way. It also,
Yeah,
fixed
I'm
my
hoping.
skin, my energy, everything, and I just think it's something that people need to know it's actually out there and we can actually do that because 99% of stem cells in the US, it's marketing, it's amniotic fluid. They don't know what they're doing. There's no data. Like Rosemary said, these gentlemen have published documents from institutions that are very reputable. And unless someone presents you with those documents, it's a no-go, in my opinion. Don't waste your money.
And
So, I think it's
and
really important. Yeah,
Absolutely. And Dr. Maristani, as I understand it, stem cells in the US, because I have been to numerous stem cell clinics, and stem cells in the US, you're allowed to take stem cells out, but you're not allowed to manipulate them, change them, multiply them
right.
in any way, shape, or form. And that is the difference. So even when they pull stem cells out of the fat, they have such a small number that when they re-inject them, that's why it's like a 50-50 chance that they're going to work. Whereas when you deal with these doctors and you go to Buenos Aires, they pull out your stem cells, but they can actually replicate them. And what their data has shown that they can replicate the cell up to 5 times before it gets compromised. So that's their standard of care. So they replicate the cell so that when you're getting an injection, you're getting so many more cells injected into the body to help do the healing. And then when you add it with the lymphocytes, which again is not approved in the US, but when you use that, then they can actually regrow the cartilage. So, and that's a separate treatment. There's the T cell vaccination, and then there's the healing. Like the basically the way it was described to me, the T cell stops the disease because they couldn't do the healing prior to, because it would like putting these stem cells into a hostile environment because the environment was still attacking the joints. Once they stopped the attacks, now we're able to heal the joints. And I'm still in the healing process.
That's amazing. Well, listen,
Yeah.
we're going to do a part 2 with you for sure. That's just an
Okay.
incredible story. We want to share this with as many people as we can. Thank you so much for taking your time out today. And I know this is going to help a lot of people. So God
Yeah.
bless this
My
entire
pleasure.
story. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk soon, Rosemary. Thank you. Bye. All right. I just stopped.